Be a part of the best pro wrestling podcast today by supporting the Going In Raw Patreon. You can enjoy access to the live taping of the show, exclusive merchandise, and patron-only episodes, and so much more. Support Going In Raw today. Click the link in the description.
Hey friendo, Steve here.
And Larson.
Title wins on Monday Night Raw are few and far between. Traditionally, title changes are generally used to maximize profit. So on pay-per-views, essentially.
But every once in a while, the WWE will shock us all by having a title switch hands on their Monday night flagship show, and when it happens, it sends shockwaves throughout the entire wrestling industry.
So here you go. Here are the 10 most shocking title wins on Raw. Dolph cashes in. The Money in the Bank cash-in has become one of the most fun, unpredictable WWE moments each year. And although they generally happen on pay-per-views, there's been some really cool cash-ins on Raw through the years.
Back in 2008, CM Punk won the World Heavyweight Championship when he cashed in on Edge after Batista put a nasty beat down on the Rated R superstar. This championship reign lasted 3 months and famously came to an end when he was punted backstage by Randy Orton and was forced to vacate the title.
The Miz cashed in on Randy Orton on a 2010 episode of Raw after the then WWE champion was beat down by the Nexus following a successful defense of his title against Wade Barrett.
But our favorite cash-in came on the Raw following WrestleMania 29 when Dolph Ziggler cashed in his Money in the Bank contract on an injured Alberto Del Rio who had just beat Jack Swagger and Zeb Coulter in a handicap match.
So basically he beat Jack Swagger. After a few years of being the best worker in the business, this was definitely a well-deserved win, and we had hoped that Dolph's championship reign would be a fruitful one. Sadly, it amounted to a whole lot of nothing. He suffered a concussion soon after his title reign started, and he dropped the title back to Del Rio.
Ziggler hadn't sniffed the title scene again until his recent SummerSlam bout with Dean Ambrose, but his cash-in illustrated how the post-Mania Raws are always some of the best, most unpredictable shows of the year.
We gotta go to one of those.
We should go one time, yeah, at least once in our lives. Yeah. We've been to WrestleMania, never to a Raw after WrestleMania.
We should just go to Raw after WrestleMania. Jericho beats Triple H! One of the biggest pops in Raw history went down when Chris Jericho beat the game Triple H to win the WWF Championship on April 17th, 2000. The crowd was insanely hot after witnessing history. Y2J's first world title win and the biggest heel wrestler of the Attitude Era, Triple H, getting his comeuppance right there in front of their eyes.
And then the unthinkable happened. Demonstrating just why Triple H was the top heel of his day, he bullied the refs into overturning the decision, and Jericho was then forced to give back the title.
It was great! Heartbreaking television proved Y2J was ready to be accepted by the WWF fans as world champ, and made them hate Triple H even more than they already did. We all knew Y2J would get the title back one day, which he did several times over, and his win isn't even acknowledged as an official title reign by the record books. But the title did change hands on Raw that night. It was amazing. It was, by all standards,
glorious!
No, I was going to say it.
Oh.
It was it. Bret Hart wins US Gold. We all know the Hitman will take any opportunity to tell anyone who will listen that Goldberg ended his career. Truthfully, it was a horrible way for his legendary career to end.
But his career didn't technically end with a Goldberg kick to the head. Back in May of 2010, the WWE officially welcomed back into the fold as the culmination of a roughly 4-year Bret Hart apology tour, which began with his 2006 Hall of Fame induction.
Now, we all pretty much knew the deal. After his Goldberg concussion and his stroke, Bret was in zero condition to actually wrestle. But that didn't stop the WWE from giving fans the illusion that Bret could still go. And let's face it, Bret being back in the WWE meant money, and the McMahons are never going to turn that away. So they concocted a way to get a title around Bret's waist.
And that involved The Miz in a no DQ match on Raw on May 17th, 2010 in Toronto. When Miz was forced to choose a member of the Hart Dynasty to defend his US title against, he chose Bret. Because, Bret was old and probably shouldn't have been wrestling. Easy win, right?
Wrong! It was a no DQ match, so the rest of the Hart family beat the crap out of The Miz and gift-wrapped him for Bret, who applied the Scorpion Deathlock, the sharpshooter, to The Miz and made him tap out. Bret held the belt for a week before vacating it to become the general manager of Raw. The title change was a shocking turn of events, though, and it had the crowd going crazy.
And sure, we all knew it was basically an honorary title win, but you could tell Bret was having fun for once, and it was a decent cap to Bret's illustrious career and opened the door for sporadic appearances once his last run was over with. His most recent appearance was at this year's Payback, helping to even the odds as Natalya took on Charlotte. The match ended with Bret putting Ric Flair the sharpshooter as Natalya did the same thing to the Nature Boy's daughter.
And surprise! Hart spoke fondly about his time at the show. He said nice things, Larson. Weird, right? Roman wins the WWE title. The seemingly never-ending quest to get Roman Reigns over with the fans has had a few successful moments here and there, lost amongst a lot of crappy booking. One of those moments came at the tail end of a good 48 hours of quality writing for the Shield big man.
His 2-day run of being over started with his title match against Sheamus at TLC last year. After being screwed out of the win by the League of Nations, Roman went apeshit on Triple H, spearing the shit out of him multiple times. The crowd went crazy over this berserker version of Roman, something everyone wanted to see.
He was over big the next night on Raw, with the crowd wanting to see more crazed, violent Roman and not cool, wise-cracking, promo-memorizing Roman. And when Vince booked Roman in a rematch for the world title with the added stipulation that Roman would be fired if he didn't win, pretty much the entire WWE universe was thinking of how they would screw Roman out of the title and keep him around, because there was no way the title was changing hands on Raw.
A world title switch hadn't happened on Raw since Dolph's cash-in we referenced before, and that was the big gold belt, which at the time wasn't as prestigious as the WWE Championship.
So when Roman won the belt off Sheamus after Superman punching the living shit out of 70-year-old Vince McMahon, the Philadelphia crowd went insane. This was the same Philly crowd that booed Roman out of the building when he won the Rumble less than a year earlier. It was insane, and suddenly the prospect of a Roman title run wasn't so bad.
And of course, his lackluster world title run began, and he was booked as a guy who referred to himself as the guy all the time. Once again, the lesson hadn't been learned by WWE Creative.
But for those magical 48 hours, the Roman Reigns experiment was a massive success.
You know, they're back on the right track.
Yeah.
If they make his catchphrase,
man, put that beef away. Sasha Banks ushers in the new era. The new era may have technically began after WrestleMania 32, when we saw the main roster debut of some of the more popular NXT acts. But it really seemed to begin after the WWE brand draft, or brand split, or extension, whatever you want to call it.
Not only do we see another round of NXT call-ups, but suddenly we are given two distinct rosters, essentially creating two new wrestling promotions with rebooted storylines. And the WWE obviously wanted to make a huge deal out of this new arrangement.
So the first new era episode of Raw kicked off with a major stunner. Sasha Banks, who we all figured correctly, it turns out, would nab her first main roster women's championship win at SummerSlam, got the win over Charlotte on Raw instead.
The match felt like it belonged on a major pay-per-view, complete with Sasha's Eddie Guerrero-inspired stunt to get Charlotte's henchwoman Dana Brooke banished from ringside.
Once that happened, it became obvious that this was Sasha's time, and echoed a similar big women's division match that took place in December of 2004, but we'll get to that in a bit.
Unpredictability is one of the most important ingredients that makes a great slice of WWE programming, and Sasha's title win that night was exactly that. We can't wait till she gets back from injury to take back what belongs to her.
I'm wondering if us touching the women's title SummerSlam weekend jinxed her.
Well, I just kind of touched it. You really touched it.
I didn't touch that, I just touched with my index.
But I used my pinky finger.
The New Age Outlaws win tag gold. Oh, you didn't know? The Raw after WrestleMania is always a big one, Larson, as we've seen earlier in this list. Now, that hasn't always been the case, but more often than not through the years, since WrestleMania is often the climax to a number of storylines, the post-Mania Raw feels at least like a reboot, kind of like a season premiere.
But in 1998, it felt like something special, given that it was the birth of the Stone Cold era. And while the Austin-McMahon rivalry really kicked off that night, the main event of the show saw a huge title change.
That would be the tag team titles, which had been lost at Mania the night before by the New Age Outlaws to Terry Funk and Cactus Jack. They were won back in brutal fashion in a cage match on Raw, but their win was significant in another big way.
It came with an assist from the rebooted DX. Due to Shawn Michaels being placed on extended hiatus thanks to his tore-up back, Triple H tried out X-Pac earlier in the night as the latest member of the Crude stable. During his promo announcing the return of X-Pac, he made mention of expanding his DX army, and with their title win at the end of the night, the New Age Outlaws officially became the final pieces of the DX puzzle.
X-Pac! It could be debated which version of DX was superior, but that night on Raw, DX version 2 added some gold to their ranks and put a stamp on the first night of the Rattlesnake's reign.
They also added some
X-Pac! X-Pac! Universal title! Sure, it just happened less than a week ago, but we're still hyped over Triple H's run-in during the Universal Championship Fatal 4-Way. His run-in electrified the arena, and his pedigree on Seth Rollins set up so many questions and potential storylines. It was the perfect time for the game to return.
The silver lining in any injury in the WWE can be found in matches like this. Granted, Finn Balor going down for 6 months is a huge loss for Balor marks like Steve here.
But as we've stated, unpredictability breeds excitement in the WWE, and the main event of the August 29 episode of Raw was exactly that. It was unpredictable.
Going into the match, there was absolutely no lock to win the red belt. Hell, even Big Cass had a shot in our minds, simply because him and Enzo are so over.
In the end, of course, the match saw the beginning of the Kevin Owens era, and hopefully this will launch some intriguing storylines on the Red brand.
And who knows, it might even get Sami Zayn back into the main event scene.
Probably won't happen. The game begins! Speaking of Triple H and world titles, the August 23, 1999 episode featured the Game winning his first WWF World Championship in a match that foreshadowed his thousands of world title victories throughout the rest of his career.
In other words, it was mired in controversy. In fact, getting the title on Triple H in the first place was a shady process, much more behind the scenes than in front of the camera. By all appearances, Triple H's coronation as champion should have been the previous night at SummerSlam.
According to both Triple H and Mick Foley in the Thy Kingdom Come documentary on the WWE Network, Steve Austin was originally supposed to drop the belt to Triple H that night at SummerSlam. Somewhere along the line, he decided to rather drop it to Mankind, who could then go on to drop it to the Game the next night on Raw. Apparently, he actually said that.
The level of awkwardness Foley and Triple H exhibit while talking about Austin's decision is palpable. Foley outright says it would have made more sense for Triple H to win at SummerSlam, and says he didn't ask any questions, he just went along with it.
So Mankind had one last title reign of 24 hours before the Game won the title at Raw. One can't help but think that Austin was either trying to prove a point, or flex his power, or put the Game in his place, who knows. But it made for a killer episode of Raw.
And now Triple H basically runs the company and is a 14-time world champion, and Austin has a podcast. Who won in the end?
Oh, come on. Austin is a hugely popular figure and is the biggest draw ever in the WWE.
I know, I'm joking. Everyone loves Stone Cold. I love Stone Cold. It's weird that he seems to be friends with everyone in the business, though. It's actually really impressive.
That is really weird, because the business is all about backstabbing people, especially back then, you know.
But everybody seems to like Stone Cold.
Everybody loves Stone Cold. What? The women's main event! One of the questions we get asked most on Going in Raw is, will we ever see a women's division main event on a WWE pay-per-view?
And our answer is usually yes! Because of the way things are going in the women's division, the level of talent coming through the ranks, it's a near certainty that we'll see a women's division title match as the main event of a non-Big Four pay-per-view sometime in the next few years.
And sadly, we should have already seen it had the women's division continued along the path it was headed under Lita and Trish Stratus back then.
The culmination of this direction was Lita's Women's Championship win over Trish in the very first women's main event on Raw back in December of 2004. It was a thrilling match by two of the best workers in the roster back then, regardless of gender.
The bout is widely regarded as the best match in women's division history, or at least it was until Sasha Banks and Bayley's NXT TakeOver matches entered into the debate recently.
According to Internet, the match is shown to incoming female wrestlers to demonstrate the high bar that was set by Lita and Stratus. Sadly, their ongoing feud was stunted thanks to some injuries sustained by Lita during their next encounter.
And it wasn't long after that the women's division came crashing to a new low with a plethora of Playboy-ready divas, a belt that looked like a pink butterfly, and a lot of Vince acting lecherous.
With the Game and Stephanie McMahon understanding there's money to be made in quality women's wrestling, the women's division is definitely headed in the right direction. And wrestlers like Sasha, and Bayley, and Charlotte, and Becky Lynch are carrying on the legacy of that Raw main event back in 2004.
Foley puts butts in seats! We talked earlier on this list about how important unpredictability is in ensuring an exciting WWE product. And although the Attitude Era is well remembered for many things, one thing it stands out for is its unpredictability.
Hence, there are many title changes on Raw back in the good old days. 3 of Stone Cold's WWF World title wins came on the Monday night show.
And Mankind's stunning first WWF title win came on a historic Monday Night Raw. And it came in a storyline involving the entire main event scene. Mankind fought then champion The Rock, got an assist from DX and Stone Cold to a feverish crowd who blew the roof off the building when the ref counted 3.
It was a truly magical moment, one that WCW tried to ruin when Eric Bischoff instructed WCW commentator Tony Schiavone to sarcastically proclaim that Mankind's win would, quote, put a lot of butts in seats. Of course, this hilariously backfired when 500,000 people changed channels from WCW Nitro to Raw to see his coronation as a new world champion.
This was the ultimate reward for a guy who had done so much for the business. He put his body on the line countless times for many promotions, and this was proof that Vince saw money in Foley, understood his value, and appreciated all he did. Monday Night Raw was never better than that night on January 3rd, 1999. I remember watching it live.
Me too.
You did, yeah. You were there. You were right next to me. We've been watching this shit a long time.
Yeah, we have.
So those are the Raw title changes we thought were the biggest and best. Let us know what you guys think in the comments.
And we have a bunch more wrestling programming here at our channel. We got Going in Raw, our podcast. It happens 3 times a week. We got these countdowns.
Yeah, we got all sorts of stuff.